Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to talk about yet another at-home Doge Scrypt ASIC. And this one, if the specs come out correct, will be the best at-home Doge ASIC. Okay, we're talking efficiency, potentially pretty comparable to even the yet released models, including the L11 and the AlphaMax DG2. Okay, so making this pretty impressive on certain aspects. There's certain downfalls to it. We're going to talk about what to expect here, but we're going to be talking about the new FluMiner L3. Okay, we do have specs, release windows, price points, all that good stuff. We'll talk about it. We'll give our thoughts and see how this thing stacks up to the competition. See if this thing is worth looking into. Okay, if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So before we fully get started, if you guys find any value in the content, please consider liking, subbing, and potentially joining our memberships to help to support the channel. Would be greatly appreciated. But let's get right to it. So this is something that came out actually early last week. I was kind of waiting for more confirmation though. Initially, I saw BT Miners had it up extremely early, surprisingly, even before FluMiner had it on their X or before any of the socials. Wanted to wait till we got a little bit more confirmation just because the specs were borderline kind of unbelievable. Let's look at them though. So this is going to be the FluMiner L3. Yes, just essentially weeks after the debut of the FluMiner L1 Pro. 9.5 gigahash at 1700 watts. Okay, so the immediate standouts are number one, the naming, right? FluMiner, we've given them crap because of the name. Just at least for us, speak English, kind of an odd name. The L3 is also an odd choice, just considering the existing Bitmain L3, right? It makes us think of Doge Scrypt ASIC mining though. But again, the whole name all around is a little bit weird. But when we look at the efficiency though, right? Even just eyeballing, what does that look like, right? The 9.5 gigahash, it's like a freaking L7. So the L7 at damn near half the power. Okay, so this is about 0.18 joules a megahash. Okay, that's up to par. That's even beating like the AlphaPax unit and such. But we'll talk about why it may not actually be that efficient just because of previous models here. But it's just crazy. And like we mentioned, the L1 Pro was just announced not too long ago. And this is a big part of the problem of what's been going on, especially these past year, 2 years. The overabundance of models coming out, right? It's almost to the point where it's borderline ridiculous, the amount of units coming out. But for me, part of it is also just where we're at in the cycle, right? To me, that's kind of even signaling that even these guys think that we are in this last phase. And that's why there's such a rush to try to get their name out there, even though it may not be releasing for quite a bit. Okay, so it's just funny. Like earlier I was looking, Vosk just released a video regarding a FluMiner, which isn't this one though, right? And it's titled The Best Home Dogecoin Miner. And already that video that just dropped an hour ago is already outdated. Okay, because we already have the FluMiner L3. It's just funny that it's from the same manufacturer. And this is a big part of the problem and why it gives zero confidence to buy a lot of these units, considering it's going to be outdated within 6 months or so, right? It's been, instead of being a 2 to 3 year cycle, down to a 1 year cycle, down to like a 6-month cycle in certain cases. Right? And not even just from these small manufacturers. If you guys remember, even on the Bitmain Bitcoin side, between like the S21 Pro and the S21 XP, it was literally months in between. Like, it's just crazy, and that's a big part of the problem we're having in the industry as a whole, right? So, I mean, the reality, that's a whole nother topic. We're gonna get off topic. Let's continue on with the video, though. So let's look at, again, the efficiency is the standout here, right? When we go on mining now, we sort these Doge ASICs by efficiency. You can see that it's right on par with the Antminer L11. Okay, and as a matter of fact, beating the DG2 Plus that it's at 0.19 joules per megahash, which is crazy for an at-home ASIC. Okay, so the one caveat though, the one thing I do want to mention, shout out to you guys who have given us information who have an L1, the FluMiner L1, is that they kind of lowballed the wattage pretty significantly. right? In most cases, you have that 3 to 5% window. Obviously, depending on climate and such, also it can factor in. But a lot of people were actually clocking in quite a bit over what was essentially rated, right? So although it's listed at 1700 watts, don't be surprised to see it at like 1900, potentially 2000 watts. Okay, and part of the issue there is that specifically if you're in the US, if you really want to use this as an at-home ASIC at 1700 watts, you're kind of already on the borderline for a 20 amp circuit to be used indoors. Okay, you're already going to be exceeding a 15 amp, which is what a lot of us have. But if you have a 20 amp circuit indoors, you're kind of already at the line. And if you are going beyond that 1900, 1950, you're going to be maxing out that 20 amp and may not be feasible to use indoors, right? Which again is one of the biggest benefits of having this type of form factor, right? So hopefully in the future, maybe they kind of release more customization in terms of being able to adjust the frequency just to get you lower, just in case it does come in at like 1950. So you can tweak it down to be able to meet your needs, okay? Instead of having a fixed like high mode and then like a super low efficient mode or something, like having that more customization. Just because at that wattage, again, it's more of an in-betweeny, right? Realistically, I'm a bigger fan of the previous wattage with the L1 in that 1300 watt range, just because it is a big boy to be used indoors, but it does give you that flexibility, right? Especially for you guys in colder climates to be able to use them as heaters and such. Obviously, me in Florida, that's not really a benefit, but for those of you guys who can benefit there, it is a use case, because even at like 1700 watts, that is pretty hefty to be using indoors, right? That is definitely enough to adjust the climate, whatever room it is. Obviously, if in your super cold area, it can be beneficial. But even at that point, running constantly might be almost too warm, depending obviously on your climate and your situation. But just kind of something to consider, right? So it's borderline kind of an at-home, but almost like a garage type situation, which honestly, even in that case, I'm not super against either. To me, that's going to kind of be the future of like at-home crypto mining, especially potentially for this next cycle, are these more in-betweener units, because that's at that point where it's a heftier unit at 1700 watts, but it's not going to break the bank when shit hits the fan later on in the bear market if you're just mining and hodling, right? Kind of giving you exposure. So theoretically, let's say you have a 30 amp circuit, you can have this Scrypt ASIC, you can have a BTC one, because they are also coming out with a BTC model that's very similar, and maybe another algo, right? All on that same 30 amp potentially, right? So that way you can kind of downsize, you can kind of diversify and not have to eat these 3500 to now 4000 plus watt monsters, right? Because it's a lot harder to justify or to be able to pay out of pocket a 4000 watt unit, depending on your electric rate, if you're just mining and hodling. Okay, so there's benefits to it, or the fact that you could have one full-size ASIC and the 1700 watt just to kind of fill up that 30 amp circuit. Again, it gives you flexibility in a sense, so there are pros and cons to that form factor, but just realistically, I think they would have been able to reach more people if it was slightly lower wattage, or again, giving us extreme customization to adjust it to our needs. Okay. So overall, so even if it is slightly less efficient, again, that's the main theming here. Even if it does, it's actually 9.5 at 1900 watts, and it brings us down to a 0.2. That's still pretty damn good, and still would actually beat even the L9. Okay, so, and just be right below the DG2 Plus, right? So one thing to factor in, there is eventually going to be a AlphaPex DG2 Home. How far out the window it is, though, we have no idea. When we look at the L3, though, profitability, this is where it gets appealing, right? Because your electric will be 286. Let's actually bump this up. Let's go up to a 12 cent kilowatt hour. It's 490. So overall, your daily profit currently, again, this is right now, it'd be about $8 a day. Okay, so your yearly revenue, again, I wouldn't even recommend doing any kind of ROI calculations. Again, you're doing it for yield, just because, again, in 6 months from now, the market may be completely different, where that's going to be fully irrelevant, right? Maybe we're going sideways from where we're at right now. Maybe we're slightly higher. The more likely scenario, though, is that potentially we're going to be significantly lower, right? And it's going to be just depending on how high Doge goes this cycle. A lot of factors, and that's why it's a very difficult time, realistically, to buy any hardware, right? When you're buying earlier on, you're kind of preparing for this time now. Right now, we're in that time. It's gonna be very tricky. Okay, so just make sure you do fully understand kind of what you're getting yourself into, especially because of the shipping window of this thing. Okay, this is what they don't mention on their X, and they didn't mention a couple other things. But when we look at the prices here in a moment, it's not going to be shipping until January 2026, and that's if there's no delays. Okay, so just based off of that alone, for me, that's a huge, huge negative, especially considering where my viewpoint is on the market and the fact that my focus is just buying the coin right now. Okay, so like for me personally, losing a lot of interest if it's that late, just because again, we can be in a completely different place by January, right? It's fully possible that we peak November, December, and we're already in the downtrend of the cycle by then, right? Or maybe we're not. Maybe this is just the midpoint and we're bullish all the way till March, April, and beyond, right? But regardless, even if that's the case, for me, you're losing 4, maybe more months of like peak mining time if your unit's profitable. Okay, so like even just that reason alone is not enough. Okay, and then factor in also, again, what did we talk about just a few weeks ago with that price cut on the L9s? This guy's going to be $4,200. Those L9s at the time were $5K. What makes more sense, especially if this guy's potentially not even potentially usable indoors, depending on your use case. Okay, all day, like we mentioned, the L9 at that price point was probably the buy if you were going to buy any hardware. Okay, so specs looks good, efficiency's good. This is one to me to watch more in the bear market, or even by the time this thing releases, right? We'll have a better idea of where we're at, right? These next few months can be extremely pivotal. A lot can happen, and a lot of the future will be known after that, right? By January, we'll have a lot more clarity because we'll already know, because we're kind of past that time period that we're looking at. Okay, so for me, even if the price was crazy good, like you're losing too much of this crazy time to maximize things, right? So to tie up $4,000 when, like we've mentioned in other videos, it's degen time, it's time to really make these profits. It's a very, very, very tough sell to pre-order anything right now. As we look at its competitors, though, again, it's the L1 Pro, which is their other model. Slightly less efficient at 0.23, 6 gigahash, 1400 watts. Again, this is much more appealing because in this case, you can have it indoors. Again, even if it's 1600 watts, you can have it on that 20 amp. It is doable. This is definitely going to be cutting it close. Maybe it is actually on point. It's one of those things we're going to have to wait and see, right? So, definitely a difference there, but not massively, massively. Price-wise, obviously the L1 Pro is going to be damn near half the price. The FluMiner D1 Mini, 2.2 gigahash, 0.23. So again, very similar to the L1 Pro. The other main home competitor, and this one now to the point where it is pretty outdated, right? Because it's 2.1 gigahash at 0.3 joules to megahash, and that's where the difference is pretty significant, right? It's not exactly double, but it's getting pretty close. Okay, so definitely as an at-home unit, very appealing. Timing wise, not a fan though, right? And then let's look at the price. So the price is arguably not too bad. To me, it's that shipping window though, right? You're not going to be getting it until January 2026, and that's your best case scenario. That's saying that there isn't any issues with manufacturing, any issues with shipping, and that's I actually get it on time. Okay, for me, you're losing peak profit time right now if this bull market plays out. Okay, so I mean, again, even if it was, it'd have to be like a crackhead price for me to really considering all the advantages you would have with purchasing units now, especially after that most recent price cut with the L9 being at 5K a few weeks ago. Okay, it's an extremely tough sell, right? I'm sure some of you guys are going to find this appealing, but again, we're going to be in a very different world come January 2026, right? We're either going to be extremely bullish or we're going to be even more doom and gloom than we are now. Right? So factor those things in. Again, overall seems impressive. Is just the timing. Price-wise is 4,200 pretty much everywhere, right? Which is a little bit sus because, again, Miner Bros tend to usually be on the higher side. But that's where all the manufacturers, or not manufacturers, all the websites are listing it at. But again, we'll see how FluMiner is. For any guys who have the existing L1, L1 Pro, please let us know in the comments how it's been doing. Again, this is going to be interesting for the bear market though, right? Depending on how things go, depending on where the price goes. Still a very interesting unit. Interesting form factor, especially that Bitcoin one that's supposed to start shipping next month. Again, and you guys let us know, because again, this is a form factor that is going to be very appealing come bear market time, especially when shit hits the fan. Especially if there's more lower power modes that make it even more efficient, bring that power consumption down quite significantly. That makes it even more appealing for the eventual downtrend that we have. Okay. Another notable release is, it looks like the L2, the little speaker thing, finally came out, because I've been seeing shill galore on this thing, which to me, it's just not a fan, right? Hopefully it holds up. I'm not a fan of these novelty things that don't make you any money. Especially when, I mean, for comparison's sake, we can even eyeball it just to the FluMiner unit, right? The FluMiner unit's $250 more, and it's damn near twice the amount of hash, right? For the little speaker aspect, I mean, buy yourself a little $50 JBL portable speaker, and it's going to be the same damn thing. Right, I'm here to make money. Realistically, this thing would be better suited at, like, let's say $4.99, maybe $5.99, slight premium because of the little form factor thing, but it's just definitely not my thing. I know a lot of people have been shilling this thing, but it's totally up to you. That's just the way I view it, right? So it's one thing if it's a little $100 BitX thing, not a fan of those either, but I get it, right? But at this point, you're spending a hefty amount of money at arguably kind of the worst time, right? So just something to know. But let me know in the comments, guys, what do you guys think of this FluMiner? Do you guys agree it's just too many damn units coming out too fast? Or are you not a fan of the release window? Let me know what you guys think. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'm out.